It's funny, isn't it? We're out here asking these huge questions like, are we alone in the universe? And for some people, the answer might be right there, staring us in the face, up on the moon.
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it? This idea that one of the most familiar objects in our sky could be harboring such a profound secret.
Yeah, and not just a secret, but like a whole alien base. I mean, come on. Is there really an alien base on the moon? We're diving into all of it, folks. All those wild theories about a NASA cover-up, those grainy photos, those people claiming they've seen the proof. We're going deep.
It's amazing how the moon landing, this incredible achievement for humanity, also seems to have fueled so many questions about what might be hidden from us.
Totally. It's like the more we learn, the less we realize we actually know. So where do we even begin with something like this? I guess with the people who claim to have been there, right? The NASA whistleblowers.
Yeah, these figures often become central to these kinds of stories. They claim to possess this insider knowledge, to have seen things that challenge everything we thought we knew.
Like take Carl Wolf, for example. He claimed he analyzed lunar photographs for NASA and saw, get this, structures, actual buildings, not natural formations. And not only that, but he said there was a whole secret international team studying them.
His story and others like it, they really tap into our desire for hidden truths, this idea that there's more to the story than we're being told.
And it's not even just what he said he saw, it's what happened afterward. The guy dies in a hit-and-run accident right after going public. I mean, talk about suspicious.
It's definitely a detail that captures the imagination, even if there's no direct evidence linking his death to what he claimed. It feeds into this larger narrative of shadowy figures silencing anyone who dares to speak out. But we do have to be careful about making those kinds of connections without solid proof.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Then there's Ken Johnston. He said he worked as an engineer with NASA, claimed he was ordered to destroy photos. Photos of what, you ask?
Yeah.
Oh, just your everyday alien cities and technology that's, let's just say, a tad more advanced than our own. I mean, can you even imagine being told to erase proof of something like that? It just makes you think, what would I do?
That's a question that goes to the core of these alleged cover-ups, isn't it? It forces you to confront the weight of such knowledge, the potential ramifications of revealing it or even concealing it.
Yeah, talk about a moral dilemma, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got Donna Hare. She claims she worked for a NASA contractor, and her job was airbrushing things out of lunar photos before they were released to the public. She talked about this one specific thing she had to erase, a round dot, she called it. It really makes you think, like, if they're doctoring something as small as a dot, what else are they messing with?
Hare's story taps into that fear of a cover-up that a lot of people have, right? The idea that there's this deliberate effort to keep this kind of information from us, especially when it comes to something as huge as the possibility of life on other planets.
Right. But then again, how can we be sure these whistleblowers are being straight with us? I mean, is it possible they have their own reasons for making these claims?
And that's the big question, isn't it? As captivating as these stories can be, we have to approach them with a critical eye. We have to ask, are these individuals who they say they are? Are there other explanations for their experiences that don't involve alien moon bases? These are questions we can't ignore, even if we want to believe.
So we've got these people, these whistleblowers, claiming to have the inside scoop, but where's the proof? You know what I'm talking about, right? Those blurry photos, those weird shapes on the moon. What about those?
That's where things get really interesting, visually speaking. We're talking about those images that supposedly show structures or anomalies on the moon's surface that, well, some people say just can't be explained away as natural.
Exactly. Like, what about those photos from the Clementine mission back in '94? The ones of the Zan crater. I mean, they're blurred out, like someone just took a eraser to parts of them.
The Zan crater images. A perfect example of how even a tiny detail can become a huge deal in the world of conspiracy theories. You know what makes them even more interesting? When you look at other photos of that same crater, taken at different times, well, you can't help but wonder what they might be hiding in those blurry sections.
Right. It's almost like they're trying to hide something. And then there are the even more out there claims. Yeah. Pyramids, towers, giant footprints. Giant footprints. What's up with that?
Okay, well, now we have to talk about something called pareidolia. Basically, our brains are wired to see patterns even when they're not actually there. It's a survival thing, helped our ancestors make sense of the world way back when. But that same instinct can also make us see familiar things in random shapes, like shadows on the moon.
So you're saying those giant footprints are all in our heads?
Not necessarily, but it's definitely something to think about. And don't forget, a lot of these pictures were taken with pretty old technology. Image compression, especially with data coming all the way from space, can sometimes make things look a bit weird. What might seem like a perfectly formed pyramid could just be a distortion from how the image was squished down and sent back to Earth.
So not aliens, just bad internet connection. I get it.
Huh? Kind of. But seriously, there's another thing to consider. The lack of what we call scientific consensus. If these structures were as obvious as some people believe, wouldn't you think astronomers and scientists everywhere would be freaking out? The fact that there isn't this huge agreement among scientists about these anomalies, well, it suggests that maybe, just maybe, there are other explanations.
Good point. But even if it's not aliens, you gotta admit, the moon is a pretty weird place, right? I mean, think about it. Craters that are all eerily similar in depth, the way it supposedly rings like a bell. And don't even get me started on the whole how did it get so big and so close to us thing. It's enough to make anyone a little suspicious, isn't it?
You're not wrong. The moon is definitely full of mysteries. Scientists are still trying to figure out exactly how it formed, what it's made of, all sorts of things. It's a captivating place, even without the whole alien base theory. And really, that's part of what makes it so exciting to explore, right?
So we've got these unexplained things on the moon, people saying they know the truth, and frankly, a whole lot of speculation. But you know what's really got me thinking? It seems like everyone and their mother is heading back to the moon right now. I mean, China's got their change missions, NASA's got Artemis, even private companies like SpaceX are jumping in. What's with the sudden rush? It's like a lunar gold rush or something.
It's definitely sparked a lot of curiosity, that's for sure. Some folks see it as a sign like governments are finally ready to come clean, that they can't keep it under wraps anymore. But of course, there are maybe some more down-to-earth explanations for all this moon mania.
All right, I'm listening. But don't tell me it's all about scientific discovery. I'm ready to believe something big is going on.
Well, science is a huge part of it, definitely. I mean, the moon holds so many clues about how our solar system formed, maybe even how Earth itself came to be. But you're right, it's not just about expanding our knowledge. We're also talking resources, and maybe even how important it is to, set up shop somewhere other than Earth, just in case.
Resources, huh? So what are we talking about here? Is the moon hiding a bunch of, like, self-lacing Nikes from Back to the Future or something?
Not quite, though you never know what they're cooking up these days. Think more like rare earth elements. Those are essential for all sorts of tech, from your phone to those fancy solar panels everyone's putting on their roofs. Oh, and helium-3. Ever heard of it?
Can't say that I have.
Well, it's a potential fuel source for fusion power. Super rare on Earth, but guess what? The moon's got tons of it. We're talking about, like, potentially solving our energy crisis here on Earth kind of stuff.
So basically, the moon is like one giant dusty gas station in space. Okay, I can get behind that. But what about the strategic side of things? You think we're actually going to see a lunar base someday? Like a real-life moon base alpha?
It's definitely a possibility, and not just a sci-fi dream anymore. A moon base could be our launching point for missions further out, like to Mars and beyond.
Yeah.
That'd be a game changer for space exploration. And of course, you got to think about the politics of it all, right? Whoever controls the moon, controls those resources, that access to the rest of the solar system, that's some serious power.
So it's like a whole new space race. But instead of countries, it's, well, whoever has enough cash to shoot for the moon. That's kind of scary when you really think about it. But here's another thought, and tell me what you think. If there is something fishy going on up there, wouldn't all this activity actually make it harder to hide? I mean, with more eyes on the moon than ever before, someone's bound to notice something, right?
That's a really good point. Harder to keep things secret when everyone's watching. Then again, maybe all the hustle and bustle makes it easier to disguise a top-secret mission as just another science project. It's a double-edged sword, really.
It really is. So what's the verdict? When we finally get back to the moon, are we going to find evidence of an alien civilization or just a whole bunch of expensive rocks? Guess we'll just have to wait and see, won't we? But hey, that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. Who knows what we'll find? That's all the time we have for this deep dive, folks. We covered a lot of ground, from whistleblowers to blurry photos to the future of lunar exploration. Hopefully we gave you something to think about next time you look up at the night sky. For those who want to dig deeper, we've got links to all the sources we talked about in the show notes. Keep those questions coming. And as always, thanks for listening.